The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. Its walls were covered with the flags of 300 conquered worlds. Every surface was polished to show reflections, so that anyone who stood before the tribunal would see themselves from every angle, reminded again and again of how tiny they were. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center of this hall and refused to feel small. Before her sat the tribunal, 12 beings from the most powerful species in the hegemony of United Stars. They looked down from floating platforms, their forms ranging from the insect-like Crix to the flowing liquid bodies of the Thessians. For 2,000 years, they had ruled this part of the galaxy. They had crushed rebellions, absorbed empires, and turned proud civilizations into obedient servants. Now they had turned their attention to Earth. Humanity has grown too quickly, said High Arbiter Zeth, a creature of gray scales and cold eyes. Your ships fill the trade routes. Your colonies spread like disease. Your people speak of independence as if it were a right rather than a privilege we allow. Elena kept her voice steady. We have broken no laws. We have honored every treaty. Treaties can be changed, Zeth replied. Laws can be rewritten. This is the way of the galaxy. Ambassador, the strong decide. The weak obey. He pressed a symbol on his platform, and a hologram appeared in the air, a document covered in alien text. Elena did not need a translation. She had been warned this was coming. The hegemony offers humanity a place in our great family, Zeth continued, his voice dripping with false kindness. You will accept guided integration. Your fleet will be disbanded. Your weapons will be destroyed. Hegemony governors will oversee your worlds to ensure stability. You mean slavery, Elena said. Silence fell over the hall. No one spoke to the tribunal this way. Zeth's eyes narrowed. We mean survival. You have 30 standard days to accept. If you refuse, we will be forced to take corrective action. He let the words hang in the air. We have corrected many species before. Most no longer exist. Elena looked at each member of the tribunal in turn. Some avoided her gaze. Others smiled with cruel anticipation. None showed mercy. I will deliver your message, she said. But I will not kneel. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast hall. Behind her, she heard whispers of shock and anger. No ambassador had ever left the tribunal's presence without bowing. As she reached the great doors, something made her stop. Along the walls of the chamber stood the Watchers, ancient beings of living crystal, who had observed hegemony proceedings since before recorded history. They never moved, they never spoke, they simply watched, their purpose unknown to all. But now, as Elena passed, every Watcher turned its head to follow her. She felt a chill run down her spine. In 2,000 years, the Watchers had never reacted to anything. Why now? Why her? She did not have time to wonder. Her ship was waiting. Earth needed to know what was coming. The journey home took 3 days. Elena spent most of it staring at the stars, wondering how many of those lights would soon be blocked by hegemony warships. Humanity had 47 colony worlds, a fleet of 2,000 ships, and the fierce determination of a young species. The hegemony had 300 civilizations, 1,000,000 warships, and the experience of countless conquests. The math was simple. Humanity could not win. When she arrived on Earth, the world was already in chaos. News of the ultimatum had leaked. People filled the streets in every city, some protesting, some praying, some simply holding their loved ones. The governments of Earth met in emergency session in the old city of Geneva. Elena gave her report to the assembled leaders. She told them about the tribunal's arrogance, about the impossible demands, about the fleet that was already gathering at the edge of human space. She told them there was no hope of military victory. But she also told them about the Watchers. Something is happening, she said. Something the hegemony does not understand. Those creatures have watched in silence for longer than the hegemony has existed. They moved for me. I do not know what it means, but I believe it means something. Deep beneath the meeting hall, in archives that had not been opened for centuries, a historian named Marcus Chen was searching through ancient files. He had been studying old records of first contact, not the official first contact with the hegemony 200 years ago, but something older, much older. He found it buried in a folder marked, Mythology, Do Not Catalog. His hands trembled as he read the documents. They spoke of visitors who came before the dawn of civilization. They spoke of beings of light who found humanity when it was young and made a promise. They spoke of allies who would come when humanity needed them most. Marcus grabbed the files and ran toward the council chamber. The leaders of Earth needed to see this. Everything they knew about humanity's place in the universe was wrong. They were not alone. They had never been alone. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient eyes were opening. Marcus Chen burst into the council chamber with papers falling from his arms. Security tried to stop him, but Elena recognized the wild look in his eyes, the look of someone who had found something that changed everything. "Let him speak," she said. Marcus spread the documents across the table. His hands were shaking. The leaders of Earth leaned forward, confused by the ancient texts and faded photographs. "Before the hegemony," Marcus began, his voice breathless. "Before human civilization. Before we built our first cities or wrote our first words, someone came to Earth." He pointed to a photograph of a clay tablet covered in symbols older than Sumerian writing. "I found references in every ancient culture. The Sumerians called them the Shining Ones. The Aboriginal Australians spoke of the Sky Ancestors. The Norse called them the Light Bringers. Every civilization on Earth has stories of beings who came from the stars." The president of the United Earth Council frowned. "Mythology is not evidence, Dr. Chen. This is not mythology." Marcus pulled out a piece of metal, a fragment no bigger than his palm, covered in patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them. "This was found in a cave in Turkey in 1954. It is 300,000 years old. The metal does not exist anywhere in our solar system." The room went silent. "They called themselves the architects," Marcus continued. "According to these records, they were the first intelligent life in the universe. They existed for billions of years, alone in the darkness. When new species began to evolve, the architects helped them. They seeded intelligence across the galaxy. They lifted primitive creatures into consciousness." Elena picked up one of the documents. It was a translation of an ancient text, written in a language that had been dead for 5,000 years. "What did they want from us?" "Nothing." Marcus looked at her with wonder in his eyes. "That is what makes us different. The architects found something in humanity they had never seen before. We were violent, but also kind. We were selfish, but also generous. We feared the darkness, but still reached for the stars. They believed we had the potential to become something great." He pulled out another document, a drawing made on animal skin, showing human figures standing beneath beings of pure light. "They made a covenant with our ancestors. They would not interfere with our growth. They would not guide us or protect us from ourselves. Humanity would rise or fall on its own choices. But if the day ever came when we faced destruction from outside, when other species tried to end us before we could reach our potential, we could call for help." The defense minister slammed his hand on the table. "If this is true, why did no one remember? Why was this buried?" "Because the architects wanted it that way," Marcus said. "They wanted humanity to grow without depending on them. The knowledge was hidden in our oldest stories, scattered across cultures, waiting for the day we would need it. And that day is now," Elena said quietly. Marcus nodded. The covenant included a message, words that would reach the architects across any distance. But the message was broken into pieces. Different parts were given to different tribes, spread across the world. "We have to find all the pieces and put them together." For the next 20 days, Earth launched its greatest treasure hunt. Teams of historians, linguists, and archaeologists worked without sleep. They searched museums and private collections. They translated tablets and decoded cave paintings. They interviewed elders from indigenous communities who still remembered the old stories. The pieces came together slowly. A phrase from Mesopotamia, a song from the Australian outback, a prayer from the Mayan ruins. Each piece fit with the others like parts of a puzzle designed before humans could write. While the scholars worked, Ambassador Vasquez received another summons to Nexus Prime. The hegemony wanted to discuss terms. Everyone knew it was a trap. They would arrest her, or worse, use her as an example of what happened to species that resisted. Elena went anyway. "You are buying us time," she told her staff before she left. "I will give you as much as I can." She arrived at Nexus Prime to find the station transformed. Hegemony warships filled the space around it, more ships than she could count. The message was clear. Resistance was pointless, but as her shuttle approached the docking bay, she saw something that made her heart skip. The Watchers were leaving. Thousands of them. They drifted away from their ancient posts along the station walls and moved in perfect formation toward the transit gates. They were heading toward human space. High Arbiter Zeth demanded an explanation. For the first time in hegemony history, he spoke directly to the Watchers. They did not answer. They simply continued their journey, their crystal bodies catching the light of distant stars. On Mars, at the peak of Olympus Mons, Dr. Marcus Chen stood before a small group of witnesses. In his hands, he held a piece of paper with words written in a language older than humanity. "Are we sure about this?" someone asked. Marcus looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Elena was risking her life to give them this moment. Somewhere out there, the hegemony fleet was preparing to destroy everything humanity had built. "We have no choice," he said. He spoke the words. They rose from his lips like music, like mathematics, like something that existed before language was invented. They felt right in a way he could not explain, as if humanity had been waiting to speak them since the first human looked up at the night sky and wondered if anyone was looking back. The words ended. Silence followed. Nothing happened. Hours passed. The team waited on the cold Martian surface, hope slowly dying in their hearts. Marcus stared at the documents in his hands, wondering if he had made a mistake, if the Covenant was just another myth, if humanity truly was alone. Then the stars began to move. The first ships appeared without warning. One moment the space around Earth was empty. The next moment, it was filled with Watchers, thousands of crystal beings emerging from fold space like ghosts stepping through a wall. Human defense stations powered their weapons, then hesitated. The Watchers made no hostile moves. They simply arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around Earth and waited. On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Zeth received the news with cold fury. He stood in his private chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing the impossible scene. "They have never done this," his advisor whispered. "In 4 billion years of recorded history, the Watchers have never interfered in any conflict." "Contact them," Zeth commanded. "Demand an explanation." The message went out. For the first time in hegemony history, someone officially addressed the Watchers. They answered. The voice came from everywhere at once, from every speaker, every communication device, every screen in the hegemony. It was not one voice, but thousands speaking in perfect harmony. "We remember," the Watchers said. "We were the first the architects lifted from darkness. We were given one purpose: to watch, to wait, and to protect the youngest when the time came. The Covenant has been invoked. The time has come." Zeth's scales turned pale. "What are you saying? Humanity is not alone. Humanity has never been alone. They are the last children of the architects, and we are their elder siblings. You will not harm them." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species who had dismissed the Watchers as mysterious but harmless suddenly realized how wrong they had been. But the Watchers were only the beginning. In the Carina Arm, on 17 different worlds, mountains began to move. The hegemony had cataloged these formations as unusual mineral deposits, strange crystalline structures that covered entire continents. Scientists had studied them for centuries and concluded they were not alive. The scientists were wrong. The lithomorphs rose from their billion-year sleep. They were vast beings of living stone, their bodies the size of small moons. They had slumbered since before the hegemony existed, waiting for a signal that finally came. "We remember," they said, their voices rumbling through the ground. "We go to stand with our youngest sibling." They tore themselves free from the planets that had held them and moved toward human space. In the darkness between galaxies, something else stirred. The hegemony had detected strange energy patterns in the void for centuries, patterns they called spatial phenomena, and ignored. These were the void swimmers, creatures made of dark matter that existed in dimensions humans could barely imagine. They heard the call. They remembered the architects who had given them thought. They began their journey toward Earth. At the core of the galaxy, where stars were packed so tightly that space itself bent under their weight, ancient machines powered up for the first time in 3 billion years. The machine minds had been built by the architects as caretakers of reality itself. They had gone silent when their creators departed, waiting for a reason to wake. Now they had one. On Nexus Prime, the tribunal met in emergency session. Reports flooded in from across the hegemony, ancient species waking, silent Watchers moving, forces appearing that defied everything they knew about the galaxy. "This is impossible," one tribunal member said. "These species were catalogued as non-sentient. The lithomorphs are rocks. The void swimmers are energy fluctuations. The machine minds are dead technology. They were sleeping, Elena Vasquez said. She stood before the tribunal again, but this time she was not alone. A watcher floated beside her, its crystal body humming with ancient power. They have been sleeping since before your hegemony was born, waiting for this moment. High Arbiter Zeth rose from his platform. You cannot threaten us with fairy tales. Your fleet is surrounded, the watcher interrupted. Its voice filled the chamber like music made of mathematics. Look, the holographic display changed. It showed the hegemony armada, 1,000,000 warships representing the combined might of 300 civilizations. Around them, closing in from every direction, came forces that made the armada look like toys. Lithomorphs the size of planets, void swimmers that twisted space as they moved, machine constructs that glowed with the light of captured stars, and watchers, more watchers than anyone had ever seen, forming a wall of crystal that stretched across light years. You built your empire on conquest, the watcher said to Zeth. You believed might made right. You thought you were the most powerful force in the galaxy. The crystal being moved closer, and Zeth stepped back despite himself. You were wrong. Elena watched the tribunal members' faces. She saw their arrogance crumble. She saw beings who had never known fear suddenly understand what it felt like to be small, but she felt no satisfaction. This was not the victory she wanted. Stop, she said. Everyone turned to look at her, the tribunal, the watcher, her own staff. This is not why we called for help, she said. We did not want to become conquerors. We did not want to replace one empire with another. She looked up at the watcher. Why did the architects protect us? Why were we worth saving? The watcher was silent for a long moment. Because you asked that question, it finally said. Because even now, facing those who would destroy you, your first thought is mercy. The chamber fell silent. Outside, the Ancient Ones waited. The galaxy held its breath, and humanity, the youngest children of the architects, prepared to show everyone what they truly were. The eldest watcher drifted to the center of the tribunal chamber. It was larger than the others, its crystal body filled with light that seemed to contain entire galaxies. When it spoke, even the air seemed to listen. You do not understand what is happening, it said to the assembled leaders of the hegemony. You see our forces and think this is war. It is not. This is a reckoning. High Arbiter Zeth tried to maintain his dignity, but his voice trembled. We have done nothing wrong. We offered humanity a place in our civilization. You offered them chains. The Watcher's light pulsed with something that might have been anger. You have spent 2,000 years crushing every species that would not kneel. You have destroyed civilizations that dared to be different. You have built your empire on fear, and called it peace. The holographic displays showed images from hegemony history, planets burned, species exterminated, cultures erased. The tribunal members looked away. They had always called these events necessary corrections. Seeing them through the eyes of beings who had watched for billions of years made them look like what they truly were. Atrocities. The architects designed the universe with a purpose, the eldest watcher continued. They wanted their children to find each other. They wanted species to grow together, to learn from each other, to build something greater than any could build alone. Instead, you built an empire of slaves. Elena stepped forward. What do you want from them? The watcher turned its attention to her. That is not for us to decide. Humanity invoked the covenant. Humanity must choose what happens next. The weight of those words settled on Elena's shoulders. She looked at the tribunal beings who had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, now helpless before forces they could not fight. She could demand anything. She could order their destruction. She could make them feel every fear they had ever inflicted on others. She thought about Earth's history. She thought about all the times humans had chosen revenge, and how it had never led to peace. She thought about what kind of species humanity wanted to be. I need to speak with Earth, she said. The communication took only moments. Leaders from every human nation participated, presidents and prime ministers, generals and scientists, ordinary citizens whose voices carried equal weight. The question was simple. What should humanity do with this power? The answers surprised no one who truly knew humans. We did not survive this long by being cruel, the president of the United Earth Council said. We survived by working together. We survived by helping each other. That is who we are. Dr. Marcus Chen spoke from Mars. The architects believed in us because we could be kind when we did not have to be. If we use this moment for revenge, we prove them wrong. Elena returned to the tribunal chamber with humanity's answer. We will not destroy you, she told the hegemony leaders. We will not conquer you. We will not do to you what you planned to do to us. Zeth's eyes widened. Then what do you want? Change? Elena's voice was firm but not harsh. The hegemony ends today, not through fire, but through choice. Every species you have conquered will be free. Every world you have occupied will govern itself. You will not rule through fear anymore. That is impossible, another tribunal member said. Without the hegemony, there will be chaos. Wars will break out. Species will destroy each other. Maybe, Elena admitted. Or maybe, given the chance, they will choose differently. Maybe they will remember what it felt like to be afraid and decide not to make others feel that way. She looked at the ancient ones surrounding them. You never gave them that chance. We will. The watchers conferred in their strange, wordless way. The eldest turned back to the tribunal. There is another option, it said. Those who cannot accept this change may be relocated. There are dimensions beyond this one. Quiet places where they can harm no one. They will not suffer. They will simply be elsewhere. Several tribunal members vanished before they could respond. They had been reaching for hidden weapons, planning one last act of defiance. Now they were gone, sent to whatever peaceful prison the ancient ones had prepared. The remaining leaders looked at each other. For the first time in their lives, they had to make a choice without the threat of force to guide them. One by one, they began to speak. Some were angry, some were frightened, but some more than Elena expected seemed almost relieved. I joined the hegemony because I believed it was the only way to protect my people, one leader said. I have done terrible things in the name of protection. If there is another way. She lowered her head. I would like to try. Others followed. Not all of them, some were too proud, too angry, too attached to power. Those ones quietly disappeared, sent to their peaceful exile. But many stayed. Many chose to be part of something new. As the chamber emptied, the eldest watcher approached Elena. You have surprised us, it said. We were prepared to give you dominion over your enemies. We did not expect you to give them freedom instead. Elena smiled tiredly. Freedom is the only thing worth fighting for. It would be strange to win it by taking it from others. The watcher's light shifted in a way that might have been approval. The architects chose well, it said. You are ready for what comes next. The galaxy transformed slowly. It was not easy. After 2,000 years of hegemony rule, many species had forgotten how to be free. They had to relearn how to make decisions, how to disagree without violence, how to trust neighbors they had been taught to fear. Humanity helped them, not as rulers, but as friends. Ambassador Elena Vasquez became the first speaker of the Union of Free Worlds, a title she accepted only because someone had to do it. Her job was not to command, but to listen, to help different species understand each other, to build bridges where the hegemony had built walls. Dr. Marcus Chen led teams of historians and scientists who studied the architect's legacy. They discovered that the galaxy was full of hidden gifts, technology, and knowledge left behind for species to find when they were ready. The architects had planned for this day. They had seeded the universe with tools for building a better future. The Watchers returned to their posts, but they were no longer silent. They shared their memories with anyone who asked. Billions of years of history, countless civilizations rising and falling, lessons learned from mistakes made before humans existed. They became teachers instead of observers. The lithomorphs settled into orbit around worlds that needed protection. They did not threaten anyone. They simply existed, vast and ancient and patient, a reminder that power did not have to mean violence. The Void Swimmers explored dimensions humanity could barely imagine, and brought back knowledge of wonders beyond counting. The machine minds helped rebuild what the hegemony had destroyed, their technology turning barren worlds into gardens. Not everyone accepted the new order. Some species had grown to love power too much. Some preferred the safety of following orders to the uncertainty of freedom. Some simply could not forgive what had been done to them and wanted revenge more than peace. Elena spent years working with these groups. She failed more often than she succeeded, but every small victory, every former enemy who became a friend, every ancient grudge that was finally laid to rest, made the struggle worthwhile. On the 10th anniversary of what people called the Stirring, leaders from across the galaxy gathered on Earth. They came to celebrate how far they had traveled together, and to plan where they would go next. Elena stood before them, older now, tired, but still determined. Behind her stood representatives of the Ancient Ones, a watcher, a lithomorph projection, a machine mind interface. They had become her advisors and her friends. When the hegemony threatened Earth, she said, "We called for help because we thought we needed to be saved. We were wrong." She paused, looking out at the assembly. Human faces mixed with alien ones. Species that had been enemies for centuries sat beside each other without fear. What we needed was to be reminded who we could be. The Ancient Ones did not fight our battles for us. They gave us the chance to show what humanity was made of, and we showed them that we would rather make friends than subjects, rather build than destroy, rather forgive than take revenge. The eldest watcher moved forward. Its light had grown warmer over the years, as if contact with humanity had changed it in some fundamental way. "We have watched this universe for 4 billion years, it said. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have seen species destroy themselves and each other. We have seen enough cruelty to fill every star with tears." Its light pulsed gently. "But we have also seen this. A young species, barely a moment old by our standards, choosing kindness when cruelty would have been easier, choosing trust when suspicion would have been safer, choosing hope when despair would have been understandable." The watcher turned to face the assembly. "The architects created us to protect their youngest children. We thought that meant shielding you from harm. We were wrong. It meant giving you the space to become who you were meant to be. From somewhere far away, from a place beyond normal space, beyond time, beyond anything science could measure, a new voice joined the gathering. It was made of light and mathematics and love older than the stars. "We never left," the architects said, speaking to their children for the first time since the dawn of creation. "We have watched you grow. We have seen your mistakes and your victories. We have loved you in every moment." Every being in the assembly felt the words not just in their ears but in their souls. "We created a universe where life could emerge, where consciousness could evolve, where love could exist. We did this because we were alone in the darkness and we wanted others to share the light with." The voice grew warm with pride. "You, our youngest children, you have exceeded every hope we had. You have taken the cruelty that was done to you and answered with compassion. You have taken the fear that was taught to you and answered with courage. You have taken the hatred that was offered to you and answered with forgiveness." Elena felt tears on her cheeks. Around her, other beings wept, some for the first time in their lives. "The universe is vast," the architect said. "There are countless stars still to explore, countless wonders still to discover, countless friends still to make. Go now, all of you, and fill the darkness with light." The voice faded, but its warmth remained. Elena looked up at the stars, the same stars humans had watched since the first one of them wondered if anyone was looking back. Now she knew the answer. Everyone was looking. Everyone was hoping. And humanity, the youngest children of the universe, would spend eternity proving that hope was not in vain. The new dawn had begun.